Okay, so what advice would you give to, say, perhaps a young person who's feeling suicidal in a similar position to what you were in?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think something that Neil said to me that day was, don't be embarrassed. You don't need to feel embarrassed. I think, yeah, it was, and to be honest, I still get embarrassed when I'm suicidal. But don't be embarrassed. I mean, it's easy for me to say that, but it's a human thing. It is human, and it's more common than people realise. That's what we just don't talk about it. Like, I'm lucky because of my role. I've spoken to so many people out there, and they come up to me and say, "I've been through that. I was suicidal. I've tried to take my own life," and you're just like, "Whoa! Like, why are we not talking about this?" If all of us, and I understand there's a stigma, but if all of us that have been suicidal, if all of us were able to talk about it, then young people or whoever would know. Actually, no, I'm not alone, and I can get through this. It's just it's such an intense and kind of lonely place when you're having those thoughts and feelings. So I think remembering that you're not alone, and it's cliche, but you're really not when you realise how many people out there go through this. Remembering it's human as well. It's just the way that it's the way the mind works. It doesn't make you a bad person, and I think remembering that it gets better, and you can get through it. It's a temporary state of mind. It is a temporary state of mind. And I've used different helplines over the years, like Samaritans, and I know now that I can always go somewhere like Samaritans or Calm, the charity Calm. They have a helpline and an online chat. I just know I can go somewhere and I can voice what is going on for me, and it's a huge weight off. It's a huge weight off my shoulders. It doesn't always solve whatever's going on, but just to share the load, it really does. It really does help, and to know that there's people out there that are able to listen, able to hold that, won't make any judgment at all. That's incredibly helpful. So I guess ultimately it is to talk. That's my advice. And again, that's hard, but I often say, write it down. I used to keep a diary for many years, and particularly those points when I was suicidal, I would just write. I'd write, and I'd just, anything that came into my head, I'd write it down. And actually, I began to form poetry through my writing, and when I was suicidal, writing poetry, it was dark, but it helped. It did help.
You published that in 2012.
That's right. I did because just to give people an insight into what it's like, and the poetry that I wrote, it's dark, and it was just a reflection of how I was back then, to be honest. But when I was particularly suicidal, the poetry, it did help. Writing those poems, they did help. So I think it's just so important to have an outlet, some sort of outlet.
It's creative therapy, isn't it? What you're doing, it's taking your mind off it.
Absolutely.
Also, as well, just to say, great advice, by the way, to talk. I think that's the key thing, really, to help with suicidal feelings. But also not to have fear of that if you say something bad is going to happen. So I think for a lot of young people, they fear if they tell their parents, they don't really know what's going to happen. They could be whisked away, and they have all these crazy sort of ideas based on films.
I know.
So, nothing bad is going to happen if you talk.
No, it won't at all. And actually, hopefully only good can happen if you talk. Every time I've spoken, particularly about suicidal thoughts and feelings, it's been a relief. I've never once said to someone I'm feeling suicidal and it's been a bad reaction, it's been a bad response. I felt that I've just always felt this is something that I'm really glad that I finally got this off my chest. And I remember once I told my dad, it was when I was in a really bad place, 2-3 years ago, I told my dad I was suicidal, and that was a big thing for me. And his reaction was great, because I was worried, I wasn't sure how he'd respond, but he remained calm, he didn't panic, and he didn't kind of go, right, well, we need to go here to the hospital, see a psychiatrist, like, right, well, just let's. It was on the phone, I was on the phone to him, and he was like, come home, and we can just sit down and talk about this, and and that was the response that I needed to hear.